So today we will read transmission in Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga from Dr. KCV, Volume 1. Speech delivered at 3 Sir TB Road, Allahabad on 8th April 1968. I am profoundly grateful for this opportunity to speak to you on the great work which Babuji is carrying in this world. His present work is to disseminate the practice called Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga, so that not only we who criticizes of India, but the whole world may profit by the spiritual work. Ultimately, the aim is to have a new type of people who might be called divine, who live the life of God on earth and make the world a better place and a happier place to live in. For this purpose, he has propounded a system of yoga or divine connection or union, which would moderate the influences in this universe and normalize our lives. We are living in extraordinary times, and the world is seething with tensions of all sorts, which are results of great upheavals in the field of politics, of racial relations, of communal relations, of familial relations, and also individual relations. In the fields of industry and in the fields of art, you have the same confusion and tension. There have been many misinterpretations of innovations which are considered to be creations, indeed, very perverse, many of them, and that is why we are not able to distinguish between the true and the false, the beautiful and the ugly, the good and the bad. And in this great confusion, we are trying to create more tensions by emphasizing differences rather than unities. The struggle for unity again has not been well conceived. Unless the mind of man changes and his personality is transformed to become harmonious and integrated in the real sense of the term, that is to say, integrated from above rather than integrated from below, we are bound to experience more shocks. It is in this context that Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga demands our earnest and urgent consideration. Take a pause here. So this is in 1968. This is still true, right? The confusion, tension between good, bad, beautiful, ugly.
Yeah. This is always the story of humanity. Always wars are there throughout. Zyada ho gaya after the atom bomb came into existence.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga, in one sense, the ideal towards which all yogas have striven but have missed. We all know that there have been several kinds of yoga, and Raj Yoga is also considered to be one of them. We start with Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, and we consider that these are practicable to all of us. However, we know that the sannyasins have a claim of Jnana Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is intended for people who are uneducated, and Karma Yoga for all and sundry. But in ancient times, Karma Yoga demanded a knowledge of the unique knowledge of the technique of rituals. Jnana Yoga wanted competence in certain matters, and Bhakti Yoga also wanted competence in certain other respects. But thanks to our modern reformulations of ancient yogas, by very well meaning reformist, we have lost the meaning of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga is social work, Jnana Yoga is modern philosophy, and Bhakti Yoga is Mere Bhajan. Maybe that all this may lead to something good. I do not deny that each one of them has its use in a limited sense. But by and large, many of us have felt that they have become meaningless as ideals to be pursued and coveted. Therefore, we have been searching for a real yoga, but here again, we have met some people who have stated that the Raj Yoga propounded and practiced by the sannyasis is an exclusive preserve of sannyasis alone. Because Vairagya is demanded as a condition, giving up of all activities is very necessary. A state of thoughtlessness must be introduced by force and by practice. And all types of disciplines are necessary before you can have union with God. You all know about that other yoga called Hatha Yoga. It is a peculiar and arduous training of the physical body, requiring a tremendous amount of patience and, I should say, forbearance. We therefore found that Hatha Yoga again is unsuitable for the large mass of mankind. Now we have tantric systems which have developed several kinds of techniques, occult in some sense, mysterious in another sense, entirely nauseating in third sense, and revolting also. All this has set intelligent man, the thinking mind, a task of finding out how to connect oneself with God. Much better was it to deny the existence of God Himself. But when God cannot be dismissed by merely saying that He does not exist, even if that connection is maintained with the help of proofs drawn from natural history and materialistic sources. We somehow believe that there must be a supreme force which is operating in every one of us, making us live the life. But unfortunately, somehow, for some reason, whatever the reason that man may try to give, the flow of that supreme energy into us or that supreme consciousness into us has got arrested, and we feel as if the sap by which we have been fed is almost running dry. Take a pause. Uh, what is the meaning of sap? We feel as if
सैप
the
बोले
sap.
तो वो प्लांट में रूट्स जाके वाटर मिनरल्स वगैरह suck करता ना, it travels through the system of tubes and connections and it feeds the leaves and tree fruits वगैरह. So the roots are gone, it cannot suck the sap, the tree dies actually. So the essence is lost. पूजा भक्ति योगा कर्म योगा सब कर रहे हैं, but there is it is more of a ritual. There is no real sap is gone. Although the real substance which nourishes the plant, that is called the sap.
Okay.
अभी कुछ ट्री को काटे तो अंदर से पानी के जैसा निकलता ना, oh, that is called the sap. That is actually carries all the water, minerals, and which helps in the growth of the plant actually. So इंसान का mind में these practices actually bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga should help in the man's mind getting united with God actually. But these practices have become rituals where the sap is not there. That means the plant is dead. So it is more of a relic rather than actuality. I will read now. So slowly पढ़ता हूँ. Dharmesh.
Yeah, okay.
So we somehow believe that there must be a supreme force which is operating in every one of us, making us live the life. But unfortunately, somehow, for some reason, whatever the reason that man may try to give, the flow of that supreme energy into us or that supreme consciousness into us has got arrested. And we feel as if the sap by which we have been fed is almost running dry. That is why there is a deterioration in morals, degradation in society. All these wars and all are because man has forgotten his true human nature uh, and the divine nature also. Pahले to human nature, later on divine nature. Therefore, we wanted someone to give us the nature and the manner by which that supreme being can be first connected with us. We find in the message and the method given by Babuji that not only is the most simple thing available to us and ready at hand, it is something that will do the work and the task to which it has been called. Rajayoga, which he has said is really sovereign yoga, is a yoga where we start our yoga with relation with God rather than wait for it at the end of a long and arduous apprenticeship or discipleship or tapas. Earlier, to get connection to God, people used to go into mountains and caves and practice discipline and austerity for years together, and God will give his darshan, and then his journey continues. But here, Babuji has revolutionized the whole system. He is first giving you the connection. God is entering into your heart. And your yoga is beginning with the God entering into your heart. Whereas God entering into your heart was a culmination after 30, 40 years of strenuous practice, earlier stages. So that is an extraordinary benefit humanity is having because of the advent of Sri Ramchandraji. That's the thing which you have to note. Our tapas begins with the help of God, under the guidance of God, under the guidance of the supreme power, which goes on giving us the force and the power and the ability and the capacity to absorb the divine element within us. It may appear strange, but it is a fact that the most distant being and the highest and the ultimate being has been lodged in the very cave of our hearts, or rather can be lodged there. We are yet suffering from the view that God is someone who is afar and apart from the reality or the world. That logician's non-mystic view that God is far beyond us, man's finite mind cannot grasp it. The Vedic seer was much bigger in this concept than these little logicians of the Nyaya school. So God can be brought into the heart of man. Not only can he be brought, but he is willing to come in if you can call him. You can give an opportunity to him, but your idols of the cave and the idols of the tribe and the idols of so many sorts prevent that God from entering your heart. Idols बोले तो notion है, notions of caste, of gender, of of class, or color, or religion, or country. All the notions which you have about yourself, that I'm an Indian, I'm a Brahmin, or I'm a Tamilian, or a Telugu speaking, all these are idols which we strongly stick to as our identity. Those idols prevent God from manifesting in our heart, actually. Idols of so many sorts prevent that God from entering your heart. Our conceptions are like walls raised between reality and ourselves. And since you cannot break the walls yourself, somebody has to make holes in the wall you have created. And that is done by Pranahuti. The trainer does the cleaning and breaks the complexities so that God can enter into your heart. Somebody has to make holes in the wall you have created. And that is the function which befalls a teacher of yoga. I mean, teacher here means not Babuji Sri Ramchandraji. All the trainers have to do this job. He has to pierce through your walls of misunderstanding, of obstruction, the sheets which you have raised between reality and yourself. Well, I do not enter into the discussions or the descriptions as to how these walls have ever come between God and us, both from within and from without. The imageries may not help much, but we know that going outward and outward, we do not come across reality. And it is rather difficult to go inward and inward to probe into the depth of reality. So if you search for happiness outside in material objects, in name and fame, you will never get freedom or happiness. And it is difficult to penetrate into the depths of our own being because it is so difficult unless you have a, Kabir Das said, the ego is the main hurdle to which prevents you from establishing contact with God, actually. And he described the ego as he says, an ant crawling up the mountain. And he said, ant is carrying a camel and a elephant on its back, and the back is smeared by oil. And you can imagine how difficult for the ant to carry this luggage on top of a hill. Actually, if you see today's diary saying, it says after a certain stage of progress, the subtle force, pushes you down and you cannot make progress unless the guru pulls you up. So actually to go inside your heart and try to establish contact with God, there are so many obstructions are there. So it is not that easy. That's what is building up the case here. Unless a guru does that job for you. He cleans your heart, he removes the grossness, and implants the divine impulse in the heart, into the heart of a saint. The imageries may not help much, but we know that going outward and outward, we do not come across reality. And it is rather difficult to go inward and inward to probe into the depth of reality. Well, these have confronted people and produced all sorts of tensions. And when we can go neither inside nor outside, our concern is with our neighbors against whom we make all complaints and spend our whole lifetime in beating each other and quarreling with each other. In fact, we are indulging in a very senseless play because we have no other place to go towards. That is why the confusion today is we have not been able to go either upward or inward or even outward properly. All our knowledge of the world has not opened us up. All the scriptural literatures have not helped us. They somehow show a dim, far-off glance of an infinite beyond, but of its possibility here and now, we have hardly any. That is the reason why this Rajayoga was propounded by Sri Babuji. For him, as I said, the easiest thing is to get the highest consciousness into you. I almost venture to think that that is the beginning of God. That is the bringing of God to his home in the heart of man. And this is done in a simple way, taking the old system of trying to bring the ultimate manas, the first thing that is brought out in creation in its nascent form, and introducing it into the heart of the little blindfolded and severely enmeshed mind of man, and it can do the job well. And when that supreme mind, the mind of God, of course, God himself might have no mind, but he uses the mind in his creation. And that mind finds its affinity with the mind within us, of which it is a product. When that supreme mind is introduced into the heart, this little mind joining with it enjoys a peculiar sense of release of tensions. A kind of unsheathing of the sheaths seems to happen, a penetrating beyond the walls that have been raised by you, so that it can flow out and flow within. So tensions are removed at once, and man has a gaze of the infinite, which he pursues afterwards with tremendous devotion. The bringing of the highest consciousness or mind into the heart of every individual is done by a special process, which was at one stage common knowledge to all the great men, but which has since been forgotten. It had to be brought back. and now it had to be brought back under circumstances which are quite different from those ages. And for this purpose, Babuji has devised or invented a method by which it could be introduced with the least amount of sophistication, the least amount of knowledge on your part, or even faith, as he puts it, or any duty or work that you have to do in the sense of a ritual or rite. It is done simply by merely sitting before the master. And the process by which it is done by him is called transmission. Once this transmission takes place, the mind within opens up towards this new frontier. Calmness settles on it. Harmony seems to develop between himself and his members. And afterwards, he finds it developing in a larger sphere. Even natural events and oppositions yield to this new force introduced into the heart. This is the power of transmission, which Sri Ramchandraji, Babuji, has perfected and has been using on all types and grades of people, intellectuals, non-intellectuals, learned men, ignorant men, the rich and the poor, without any difference whatsoever. And the results have been, from my own experience for the last 12 years, uniformly of the same order, the detensioning of man. It is not that you will see God face to face, as some might say. There are no visions offered. There is no need for visions in this marga. Experience is not without vision. Vision is only one type of experience. Experience is much deeper in the heart. And a peculiar kind of activity of harmonized existence comes. It may not be very sudden. It is not expected to be sudden. It has to become natural, so that your body might become accustomed to this new dynamism and this new movement which has taken place thanks to this transmission. This is a unique thing found in this system and which is not found in any other. If they had, they would have forgotten it. And the Rajayogins who have been writing all these books and they're translating Patanjali's Yoga Sutras again and again, most learned men, and commented on them also, miss the most important thing, namely that you cannot control your mind with your efforts. You can only control your mind by creating more tensions. So this idea of transmission is not present in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras actually. By the ordinary textbook method of Rajayoga without transmission, you can only create tensions. And as Sri Krishna said, it requires a large amount of abhyasa, vyavasaya, cultivation and culturing, or ploughing, shall I say, before you can bring the mind under check. But checking the mind is not our goal. It is only the means. And Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha does not at all give the full definition. The real thing is, if you connect yourself with God, then everything will follow from it. So first let me be connected with God, with that ultimate force, which is called by Babuji Pranahuti or transmission. The offering of the very breath of Brahman into you. It is Manas that has become Prana, as the Upanishad puts it. And it is by that you are all living. But the prana with which you are all living has become so enfeebled, so much so that you would like to give up this type of prana even. How to give new life to you? You have to get it from the source again. And he's certainly a God who can bring that source back into my heart. To re-enliven one, make one feel a new man with a new life and a new possibility for mankind. That is the reason why this Pranahuti principle of transmission is very important. If you have all other things with you and not this, they are like dead things with you. Instruments which have no meaning, methods which have no value. And if you have this, all of them get built up and you find everything makes for your harmonization and integration. This Pranahuti, many of us think that this Pranahuti is merely the offering of argya into the fire, the ghee into the fire. And in our eating, we always feed the 5 pranas with some food and call it pranahuti. But what is it that you're offering into this fire of the heart, which is fire of greater life and an immortal one? I believe God himself offers his very breath into us. That is his mind, which is resting in peace, which is unfathomable and which cannot be broken by any amount of confusion. That is what is fed into us. You may call it the sacrifice of the Purusha in the language of the ancient Veda. The supreme consciousness is offered into you, and this we call the supreme thought, the supreme mind. And when that is introduced, our yoga starts. So this is an important point. Our yoga starts after the introduction of God into you. Whereas earlier systems, people used to spend 30, 40 years in caves doing severe penance just to attract God's attention. Their intense mental effort would create wave in the infinite God's mind, if you can call it as mind, and then his attention will come into the practicant's attention will come into his awareness, and he presents as Vishnu or Shiva or Christ or Prophet, whatever way that man conceives God to be, and then that darshan begins, and then the yoga begins for them. For us here, the yoga is starting by the introduction of God into your heart. The others are preliminaries, and as Masters has, I think, written somewhere, the real initiation comes long afterwards, and between you and the ultimate is established. I have suggested in a way that the very touch of the Master's life force into one is the beginning of a yoga that will not terminate till the complete yoga is had. We start with yoga, we culminate in identity in union. Such a saijjata is beyond any description. Mind you, the point is that is why in ISRC, so much as importance is given to the trainer. And if you read the initial instructions which are given to the trainer in the trainer's manual, he should embody the 10 commandments so that in his physical presence, you will find a sense of piety and joy spreading from him without his conscious will force, actually. It is spontaneously spreading, and then that you open yourself to that force, then he prays and then introduces that spiritual impulse into the heart. So the physical presence is important. Later on, in absentia sittings can be given, but actual benefit can happen only if you meet the trainer physically and take sittings. We start with yoga, we culminate in identity, in union. Such a sayujya is beyond any description. But we start with it, we grow more and more with it. All the sadhanas become natural to us. The so-called yama and yama are naturally established in our system because they are basic elements and characters of the ultimate consciousness, which has come to dwell within us, which has come to operate on our very urge. Our organism is not something repellent, something karmically determined by blindness and darkness and ignorance. An omniscient, omnipotent force, such as the prana of the divine, the supreme mind, the supreme thought, when it enters into our whole being, every one of the several parts of our body and mind gets new force, new direction. They become truthful. They yearn for the infinite Brahman. They neither steal nor rob, nor cause injury. Their cleanliness is natural to them. Their devotion to reality is perfect. And God almost dwells in them because they have surrendered willingly, freely, to be molded by the divine light and the divine force. But even that is not something which you are asked to do. It does it quietly, naturally, and maybe it appears fantastic. It appears almost that I am speaking something in exaggerated language. But I may confess to this, that slowly, imperceptibly, many of our abhyasis have changed for the better. And to them, there is no effort to speak the truth. There is no effort to practice brahmacharya, or an effort even to love God, or effort for devotion. Knowledge comes naturally. action comes naturally. We are established in the yoga of jnana and karma and bhakti in a natural way. And all the controls over the several portions of one's body also, I believe, if wanted, come naturally to us. Any questions so far? I mean,
No.
the Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga then takes us naturally to this point of a normal evolution of the human being to the most high spiritual stature by developing his moral virtues. Indeed, Sri Ramchandraji has prescribed in his 10 commandments the practices which might be helpful for bringing about and preserving the force and effort which the divine makes after the pranahati has been given or during the period during which it is regularly being given. The divinity which has been implanted to us, it is just like yoga is like a gardener tending to the field. You remove the weeds of anxiety, fear, worry, distrust, and all those weeds have to be removed. And your desires, deep-seated desires and aversions, which have long roots, they have to be pulled out. And when the seed of divinity is planted into it, and if you continuously protect that plant by following the 10 commandments, he said, that's the point he's trying to say. To preserve that force. Preserve that force means that seed which is planted into, it can be preserved and watered by constant practices, which is telling, and by constant remembrance. And as it grows, the weeds automatically, they cannot thrive. When this is growing powerful, the weeds will not get the nutrition and they will disappear. So indeed, Sri Ramchandraji has prescribed in his 10 commandments the practices which might be helpful for bringing about and preserving the force and effort which the divine makes after the pranahati has been given or during the period during which it is regularly being given. These commandments are rather instructions which he would like one to practice as a way of cooperation with him so that one's higher evolution may be made easy and swift. But even these instructions sometimes appear conventional to me because one naturally becomes resigned to the will of the master and one does everything as if effortlessly. Occasions for one's choice or events as to how one has to do, how not to do, certain things become infrequent. Occasions for going wrong normally do not occur. It seems as it were that the master is looking on all the time, and therefore you feel the omnipervasive presence of the master within you. The divine consciousness and the presence will be vouchsafed to you whether you are asleep or awake. It is a phenomenon which I have experienced again and again. That is why I speak with a little amount of pride that it has been possible for me to experience these things which I felt were beyond my reach. Many of the experiences recorded in some of the Upanishads get a confirmation, and you find that the system which our master has propounded is sublime, simple, and very easy to practice by everybody. This is the normal method. The extra normal or artificial methods are where you are asked to practice these things. And even if you practice them for 20 years or 30 years, yet we have got many people who will tell you that they had false, disillusionment, and so on. And I know of so many men who have come away from some other systems feeling at the very first touch of this system that they have been made perfect and pure. So you see that Sri Ramchandra's Rajayoga, this unique system of simplicity, dependent upon an acceptance and trust, as my master would put it, that the divine force which he gives as the breath of your breath and the life of your life and the eye of your eye and the ear of your ear and the mind of your mind can work a transformation of your entire personality, structured as it is and fed as it is on the normal experiences of the world. Such a change is unbelievable. I concede that it is very difficult to believe that such a thing could happen. But if you can believe certain unbelievable things which are not even credible and which you cannot verify. I am not asking too much when I request you to give this a chance to see whether it can transform you. The method is merely to sit before the master and get or ask for his pranati transmission and see whether it will not bring a state of peace and calm, a state of self-recollectedness where the thoughts do not fly about meaninglessly and where you can tolerate the whole world's thoughts, for they do not interfere with the calmness and placidity of your inner being, and where you gradually enter deeper and deeper into the levels of consciousness which have been told by the Upanishads. And the promise given by the Yoga Sutras that you enter into Samprajnata Samadhi, where you are in a non-sensory, non-mental state of thought, which is called Prajna in the Upanishads, and taken bodily by the Yoga Sutras, Samprajnata. And when you go to the Turiya state, still higher, you come to a state when you transcend Prajna, Asamprajnata Samadhi. And when that state occurs, you almost enter into what is called the Sahaja Avastha, that is normal to and natural to a person who has got to the highest possibility of release from the Prakritic soul. Then he has gone beyond the Prakriti and the Trigunas of the Prajna, and he enters into that Asamprajnata Samadhi, non-mental, non-sensory, non-Prakritic state, which is natural to the self, that is the Purusha. And all this is done with the help of the divine force which has come down from above. In this system, then the master, starting with this transmission, takes you gradually, tenderly, and yet very cautiously, step by step, beyond the circle of Maya, beyond the circles of ego, and beyond the circles of splendor, to the very central being, which is the natural state, which ought to be attained, and which can be attained by this process alone. There is no stress on faith. There is only an emphasis on a continuous process of development, evolution, transformation, and finally, perhaps even a transcendence. That supreme transcendent state, which is called the central state, is something which is for the first time rendered possible whilst yet within this body, by the techniques and methods devised or invented by Sri Ramchandraji, our Babuji. That is a very good thing, that with such small belongings, the greatest thing can be achieved. For we are working with the greatest and most sovereign principle in creation, the divine mind, which has been brought down thanks to the efforts of Babuji in such a way that it can be given or administered into almost everybody, whatever the status of his evolution in any other system or any walk of life. We are expected to train ourselves as householders, not as renouncers. Why should we renounce? Just to get this. And if it comes, why should we renounce it? The only renunciation is the renunciation of the will to live in the idols which you have created and worshipped. This is an important point. We are renouncing whatever is not truthful and whatever is not reality. I mean, the notions which we have nurtured in our mind, the assumptions which you have, the perceptions which you have, which are not in tune with reality. Like in Sanatana Dharma, we accept that God is present in every human being. So the respect which we give to the master or to the God, the reverence which we have for God, should naturally be exhibited in our behavior with other human beings. And if you are not doing that, that means we have still to evolve in our yoga, still to embody the principles of Sanatana Dharma, which is the idea that God is present everywhere and there's a unity. I mean, there is no duality between subject and object, no idea of I, mine, or I and mine and them and all that will not be there. If that is there, that means some mistake is there. So these wrong ideas, that means my caste is superior, Indian spirituality is better than other religions or other philosophical systems. They are not in tune with the essential nature of truth. Only we should have the will to renounce wrong things, renounce untruth, that's all. So that is the renunciation which we have to do. Why should we renounce? Just to get this. And if it comes, why should we renounce it? The only renunciation is the renunciation of the will to live in the idols which you have created and worshipped. All that is demanded of you, if anything at all, is a willingness to open yourself for this great experiment in the divinization of man. It has been tested again and again in the past, and it is in that sense most suited to our modern age, to our modern temperament, to the complexities that have come down to us in such measure as we undreamt of in the past. It has given us a way and a meaning to our lives. And I only pray that this benefit which has given to some of us and which he is yearning to give to all people will be fruitful and successful. It is something which I feel to be a blessing that has come to us because the transformation of man, the harmonization of man, the birth of an integrated individual, and their continuous birth in our country and elsewhere alone can bring about a transformation in the world, crisis and tensions. And man would be fulfilling the goal which he has set within himself of becoming a wise man, but one who yet lives humbly and in holiness, in God, for God, by God. I do not know if there is anything greater to the living in God, for God, by God. Some have emphasized they can live in God. Many of them have stated they live for God. But who lives by God? And with the very force which God has given to us. And this third thing is the most important. We mean to live our lives with the force, with the breath, with the vision, with the audition, with the conscience, which He gives us as men determined to achieve perfection in this world and in yonder worlds. Fear we have none. There can be no fear in this system. God is not feared but loved. And love, as He puts it, is the pranahuti for Him, a self-offering of Himself into the fire of your hearts. May you all profit by this great transmission of my Master. So this is the talk he delivered in Allahabad in 68. That's why the ISRC sir was insisting on owning up the conditions and then remaining absorbed in divine thought. Then only the impulse can be transmitted to Nabi. Otherwise, if you are in a normal human consciousness where you are bedeviled by likes and dislikes, and then you believe this world is real, whereas it is a temporary transition phase for your spiritual growth only. But majority of the man, because of so-called illusion, which Babuji says which Shankaracharya said it's called Maya. Babuji said it's not, I don't consider it as illusion, but he says it's the power of God which makes you feel that the world is real and happiness is only possible when you have sensual pleasures or when you have name and fame. That belief is due to the power of Maya actually, and every majority of the people are under the spell of this Maya, and only the yogis who are doing meditation correctly as per the instructions of the master, whose mind comes under control and then who start living in divine consciousness. If those numbers increase, then the world will be more peaceful. That's the, I think, lesson which he's trying to tell us, which is relevant even now.
Yeah. Any questions?
It involves a certain degree of hard work in the beginning, because to give priority to your meditation, priority to evening cleaning, 9 p.m. prayer, without missing even a single day, and with a clear goals in front of you, like when you're sitting every day in morning in meditation, you should have a clear aim that you should try to train your mind to have a stable attention on the presence of God in your being. So every day it should keep on improving. And when you do cleaning, you should have a clear idea that you should be getting rid of impurities and feel the lightness. And then after you become light, then you follow the 10 commandments, see that that is protected actually. Whatever condition comes to you after meditation, you should not fritter it away in news or, other mundane activities which will not help you to reach the goal. That means you should have the discernment or the viveka to know which activities which help you in your goal, which activities which will strengthen the hindrances for reaching the goal. I mean, we are a slave of wishes. If you pamper the wishes will become stronger. So unless you have a strong priority to practice these methods without any break, if you develop that discipline physically, first of all, then gradually other things will fall in place. Then with the purified mind, you study his works and all that, then afterwards it becomes easy, because you have to remember his statement that the spiritual path, the more devotion you have, it is easier to tread on the path. So initially, if you put in the hard work, later on it is easy to meditate and remain in the consciousness of Master and enjoy the tranquility and peace, which is the real nature of your being. Actually, your being is nature of bliss, and to remain in that blissful state is the easiest thing, and it will not. You will be able to remain in that state for as long as possible. You'll get tired when you're involved in the world, when you're doing your office work, or when you're dealing with officers and then corruption and all that. Get things done in the world. You get tired and exhausted. Then you want to take a holiday and get away from all this stress. But when you're meditating, you're being in contact with your own being, which is the nature of bliss. And when Master has transfused his divine impulse, that will purify the mind, and it will be easy for you to stay with God. Actually. Any questions? Any comments, or anybody wants to contribute anything to this discussion? Pranahuti, as Babuji said, was earlier known to the Hindus. Somehow it was lost, and then he had revived it, and then he brought it back for spiritual regeneration of man. It was known to the earlier days, but it was used only infrequently, once or twice in the lifetime of a Abhyasi they used to give. But then the whole thing changed.
So, shall we conclude for today?
Yeah, we'll meet next Sunday then.